Depth is the greatest and most mysterious vault of our planet. It conceals not only sunken ships and ancient ruins, but also holds countless secrets that would have long disappeared from the surface under the onslaught of the winds of time. It is in the depths of the ocean that moments of history, the fates of people, and events that left their mark on the world's memory are captured. Yet over time, they have been forgotten. The grandeur and enigma of the depths compel scientists and explorers to undertake dangerous journeys to understand them better. For this purpose, they send special devices, probes, bathyscaphs, and robots equipped with sonars and high-resolution cameras. Every time it seems we are beginning to grasp their logic, the depths reveal a new mystery. They throw up unusual discoveries and anomalies that challenge all our notions and maps. It is something capable of changing our understanding of the past, overturning our ideas about what we already knew. Before moving on to the main part of the story, I would like to ask for a small favor. Your support is the most valuable help in continuing our research. If you enjoyed this story, you can leave your feedback or share it. That would be the greatest gratitude for me. Thank you. Recently, off the coast of Patagonia, in the harsh waters of the South Atlantic, one of these mysterious discoveries occurred. In these waters, where rocky seabeds and strong currents create dangerous navigation conditions, something unusual happened. There, amid the deep and dark ocean expanses, a team of a private oceanographic expedition was engaged in mapping the seabed. Their task was to lay a new fiber optic cable connecting the continents. During their work, they recorded a strange signal that immediately caught their attention. It was not an ordinary stone or geological crack. On three-dimensional scans obtained with modern sonars, the outlines of an object were clearly visible, which could not be explained by natural formations. The contours were perfectly artificial. The object was a long, spindle-shaped silhouette, over 80 meters in length, frozen in eternal darkness at a depth where even the sun's rays did not reach. It lay in a deep depression, as if deliberately hidden, concealed from curious eyes. Initially, engineers and scientists received this find with enthusiasm, hoping to understand this mysterious object. But as they studied it, they encountered confusion and concern. When deep-sea drones equipped with powerful spotlights approached it, the beams illuminated a rusty surface covered with a layer of marine organisms that had accumulated over many years. And then it became clear. This was a submarine. However, it was not an ordinary submarine. Its silhouette was strange, unusual, unlike standard military vessels. Most importantly, it was not listed in any registry of lost ships or submarines from that time. Part 2 of 11. There was no information indicating that such a vessel had ever been in this area or gone missing without a trace. This discovery caused a real stir among maritime historians and authorities. The news spread quickly, like ripples on water, sparking intense discussion. Soon, an expedition was organized to lift and examine the contents of this mysterious ship. The area where it was located was urgently closed to navigation, and all passing ships were ordered not to approach the dangerous zone. Video signals from drones and underwater robots were transmitted in real time to a specially prepared control center for monitoring the object. Cameras showed how high-precision robotic manipulators, resembling human surgeons' hands, carefully cleaned the surface of the hull in preparation to open a large cargo hatch. Tension prevailed in the observation hall. Everyone was waiting to see what would be found inside. Then, at the most tense moment, when it seemed that the mystery was about to be unraveled, the broadcast suddenly cut out. All screens went dark. What was discovered on board the mysterious unidentified submarine, as well as the exact location and origin of the vessel, are now classified as a state secret by Argentina. This secret is kept under 7 locks and is prohibited from disclosure for a full 100 years, until December 20th, 2112. This period is an entire century of an information embargo that bans publishing and distributing any data related to this case. What could this find have been hiding inside its rusty hull? What secrets were uncovered in this old, rust-covered sarcophagus? And what compelled the modern democratic government to make such an unprecedented and harsh decision, to declare secrecy for a whole century? What kind of mystery could be more frightening than any gold, any weapon, or any forgotten technology? To at least begin to unravel this secret, it is necessary to understand its context. One must immerse oneself in the atmosphere of one of the darkest and most tangled legends of the 20th century, which still raises many questions and speculations. This is the legend of the Führer's convoy and the phantom submarines that never completed their mission and did not return after May 1945. The story that became a precursor to our current mystery began on July 20th, 1945. At that time, the war in Europe had ended just 2 months earlier. Germany had surrendered unconditionally, and its leaders were either killed or awaiting trial at Nuremberg. The world began counting losses, celebrating victory, and rejoicing over the end of bloodshed. Meanwhile, in the Argentine port of Mar del Plata, as if from another world, a German submarine Ominous 530 surfaced. This vessel was a large oceanic submarine of the AXC-40 type, designed for extended autonomous patrols in the ocean. Part 3 of 11. Its commander, a young Oberleutnant named Adomut, calmly and without signs of panic surrendered to the stunned Argentine authorities. The very fact that a German submarine appeared off the coast of South America after the war ended was a real shock to everyone. But then strange and mysterious events began, turning this incident into an international secret. The crew of U-530 spent more than 2 months at sea after Admiral Dönitz issued the order for Germany's unconditional surrender. These 2 months were a mysterious time when the submarine was heading somewhere unknown, and the question of its route remains unanswered. Where were they headed? What were they doing in the Atlantic when all other German submarines either surrendered or were sunk? The submarine's driver, named Wormwood, claimed that he did not want to surrender his submarine and crew to the British or Americans, whom he hated. He decided to seek refuge in neutral Argentina. However, his story began to fall apart. Firstly, during the inspection of the submarine, it was discovered that a powerful 105mm deck gun used for defense and attack had been removed. This weapon was large and heavy and not easily taken off. Why was it removed? Perhaps to appear less dangerous or to free up space for some other cargo? Secondly, and most importantly, the ship's log, known as the Kriegstagebuch, was missing. For any navy in the world, especially for meticulous Germans, this log was a sacred document. It recorded every mile traveled, every order, every event on board. Its disappearance meant only one thing. The commander deliberately erased the traces to hide the true route and objectives of his journey. And finally, there were no personal documents of the crew, no letters or photographs on board. Everything that could shed light on their identities vanished without a trace, as if their biographies had been erased and they themselves had become faceless agents of a secret mission. This mystery instantly exploded in the global press, generating numerous theories. Newspapers on both sides of the Atlantic filled pages with sensational headlines that stirred readers' minds. Everyone was talking about how Adolf Hitler, despite all efforts of the Allied forces, managed to escape from Germany and hide somewhere far away on the other side of the world, in Argentina. At that moment, this country became the most discussed topic because information appeared that his infamous submarine, which disappeared without a trace, had delivered Nazi leaders to a secret refuge hidden from prying eyes. Soon after, interrogations of the crews involved in this mysterious crossing began. First, they were questioned by Argentine intelligence services, and then by American spies. These interrogations turned into something resembling a theatrical performance. All participants, as if following a prearranged script, recounted the same memorized legend. They insisted that they did not want to surrender and had no intention of leaving the submarine, despite everything. This was their only response to all questions. None of the sailors, from the commander to the most ordinary sailor, provided any other explanation. They clung to their story as their last hope, and it was precisely because of this that no one could prove their guilt or uncover the secret of their true intentions. However, despite the lack of direct evidence, it was the submarine named Ominous 530 that became the first real proof that Nazis had not only land routes, but also maritime escape routes. It became a kind of key opening Pandora's box, a heap of guesses, theories, and assumptions that continue to intrigue researchers to this day. This submarine set a precedent. If one submarine could quietly and almost invisibly cross the entire Atlantic and reach the shores of Argentina, then how many such vessels could there actually have been? And what were they carrying in their sealed compartments? The questions arising after this story remained unanswered, but they continued to stir many minds. And if the story of Uranus 530 seems strange, the appearance of its sister, the submarine named Uranus 977, resembled a plot from a spy novel come to life. Just over a month after this submarine surrendered, on August 27, 1945, another German submarine surfaced in the same port of Mar del Plata. On board was a very young and daring officer, Oberleutnant Heinz Seifer. His journey was no less incredible and desperate than that of the previous vessel. Uranus 977 was different in type and design. It belonged to the famous 7th series, which was considered the workhorse of the German submarine fleet. These vessels were less suited for long-range missions than Uranus 530, being slightly smaller in size and less technologically advanced. Uranus 977 left the Norwegian base on May 22, 1945, just 6 days before Germany's capitulation. Upon hearing on the radio about the end of the war, Commander Seifer gathered the crew and offered them a choice: either surrender to the British forces or undertake a nearly suicidal voyage to Argentina, where he hoped for more lenient treatment. Many of them were married, most were of advanced age, and they decided to go ashore. They were landed on lifeboats near the Norwegian islands. The remaining 32 crew members decided to continue the journey. Heinz Seifer made a decision that still surprises experts. He chose to head to Argentina, surfacing as little as possible, using a schnorchel, a device that allows diesel engines to operate underwater. Their journey lasted 66 days submerged. It was one of the longest fully submerged crossings in the history of World War II. Part 5 of 11. Imagine how the legend of the German submarines' escape during World War II gradually filled with new details and, in detail, turned into a complex and tangled story. According to one version, 2 famous submarines, U-977 and U-530, sailed together, like 2 brothers in arms, guarding a third, even more mythical submarine, on board of which, by rumor, the Führer himself was present. This unusual trio was supposed to carry out a very important mission. Legend has it that during their journey, they landed their valuable cargo somewhere on one of the desolate shores of Patagonia, a region known for its remoteness and mysterious atmosphere. After that, to distract attention and throw off pursuers, they, as if to mark the completion of their mission, surrendered to authorities one by one. Despite their fantastical nature, these rumors continue to evoke interest to this day. They seem to emphasize that even in the darkest years of the war, some submarines managed to hide and disappear from the enemy's sight, slipping into the shadows. This entire story, filled with drama and adventure, left many people unmoved. One of its main figures, Heinz Seifer, commander of U-977, vehemently denied these rumors throughout his life. He even wrote a book titled U-977, 66 Days Underwater, in which he detailed his voyage, seemingly honestly, attempting to dispel myths and doubts. However, to the surprise of many, his book, instead of clearing up the mysteries, only intensified them. In it, he recounted adventures, fierce battles and hardships he faced, as well as heroic resistance. But this vivid and dramatic story only added fuel to the fire of rumors and speculations. Everything seemed so cinematic and desperate that it was hard to believe it was true. Like the commander of the other famous submarine, U-530, Heinz Seifer claimed they had gotten rid of their onboard logbooks, secret encryption machines, and torpedoes, which would be a huge blow to any investigators. For conspiracy theory supporters, this became the final and most convincing proof that the submarines didn't just disappear, but were carrying out some special, ultra-secret mission. They believed that Heinz Seifer didn't simply escape or was captured, but was executing a task that was part of the Third Reich's last, very important mission. And although no direct evidence of Hitler's or other Nazi leaders' transportation has been found, stories about U-530 and U-977 created a solid foundation for the belief that not all submarines that left port were destroyed or sunk. Some of them supposedly went into hiding, taking with them the most terrifying and secret secrets of the Reich. These legends about the 2 submarines, which according to assumptions reached the shores of Argentina, gave rise to an even larger and more frightening concept. This concept was called the Führer's convoy, and while previously it was only a matter of the escape of 1 or 2 submarines, now it was about an entire system, a secret, meticulously planned operation to evacuate top leaders, technologies, and the most valuable treasures of the Third Reich. All of this, according to the legend, was carried out with the help of a fleet of the most advanced submarines, a true underwater armada. The basis of this theory rests on one very important and undeniable fact. At the end of the war, Germany developed new, revolutionary submarines, the Type 41 and Type 83 series, which were called electroboats or electric submarines. These vessels were not just modernized versions of older submarines, they represented a real technological leap forward, 10 to 15 years ahead of their time. While an ordinary submarine could only stay submerged for a short period and spent most of its time on the surface, the electroboat became a true underwater ship. Some of these vessels were specially modified for specific missions. They transported the Reichsbank's gold reserves, which were evacuated from Berlin, as well as masterpieces of world art, including the legendary Amber Room, one of the most famous and mysterious art treasures. Other vessels carried containers with important documents and samples of secret weapons. Among these cargoes were the so-called Wunderwaffe, unique technologies, blueprints for the Fumimus III missile, developments for the creation of an atomic bomb, and prototypes of jet aircraft that could represent a new step in aviation development. The third group of cargo consisted of scientists and engineers whose knowledge and skills were key to these advanced technologies. They were to continue their work in new locations to preserve and develop the achievements reached in Nazi Germany. The fourth category of vessels was intended to transport the highest SS and Nazi Party leadership. These individuals planned to form the so-called government in exile, a structure that could continue the fight even if they left Germany. And of course, among these transported objects was a special submarine, specially modified for enhanced security and equipped with the best crew. It carried Adolf Hitler himself and his wife, Eva Braun. This submarine was supposed to ensure their safe escape from Europe and covert movement in an unknown direction. The main link in this complex operation on land was the legendary and mythological organization called Odessa. This was not just a fiction from novels or legends, it was a real network of former SS members who helped Nazis hide and escape across borders. These people created so-called rat lines, routes through Italy and Spain, assisting fugitives in obtaining false documents, money, and connections in South America. It was this very network that was intended to meet and coordinate with the underwater convoy, which, according to the plan, was supposed to deliver passengers and cargo to a safe location. The purpose of this convoy, according to various versions, could have been either Argentina, where Juan Perón's regime was quite sympathetic to the Nazis, or something much more fantastical and mysterious. At this point, the theory about the convoy's fate branches off, leading us into another no less captivating secret. To understand where, besides Argentina, the mythical Hitler convoy might have been headed, we need to go back to the years preceding the start of World War II, to 1938. A year before the outbreak of the global conflict, a major expedition was sent from Germany, which at that time was obsessed with the idea of complete economic independence and self-sufficiency. This expedition was well-equipped and prepared, and its ship was named Schwaben. The official goal of this operation was to establish a whaling base, as whale oil was considered a strategic raw material in pre-war Germany. It was used to produce margarine and nitroglycerin, essential materials for industry and military purposes. The expedition thoroughly surveyed a vast territory on Queen Maud Land, conducting aerial reconnaissance. Thousands of swastika flags were dropped from aircraft, symbolizing the German presence on this land and securing its claim for the Reich. The expedition named this territory New Schwaben, in honor of the homeland. After the war, this real historical fact, documented in archives, became surrounded by numerous myths and legends. One of the most famous is the legend of Base 211, or New Berlin, a hidden city or fortress beneath the Antarctic ice. According to this myth, an enormous secret facility was built there. Allegedly, German scientists discovered a unique geothermal phenomenon in Antarctica. Giant warm caves connected by river systems that never froze. This made them an ideal location for creating a clandestine base. This topic sounds as if it were taken from a science fiction movie script, filled with mysteries and incredible discoveries. However, despite its seeming fantastical nature, it gained such popularity and resilience that many associate it with real events that occurred in the post-war years. For example, there is a version that it all began with an American military operation called High Jump, which took place in 1946 and 1947. Officially, this mission was presented as a major scientific research endeavor aimed at studying the capabilities of supersonic aircraft and new technologies. However, in essence, the scale of this operation was so unusual and unscientific that many analysts and historians remain skeptical. A total of 13 ships, including an aircraft carrier, and more than 23 aircraft were involved in this operation. Nearly 5,000 personnel worked aboard. This massive fleet was dispatched specifically to the shores of what is presumed to be the southern continent, known as New Swabia. The goal of this expedition was believed to be conducting research related to the possible presence of unusual objects or technologies in these remote waters. However, after just 6 months, the expedition was unexpectedly halted, not because it achieved its objectives, but rather due to unforeseen circumstances. The leader of this operation was the renowned polar explorer and admiral, Richard Burt, whose reputation as an Arctic and Antarctic researcher was impeccable. Upon returning, he reportedly testified at closed hearings in Congress, stating that the United States should be prepared for potential attacks by aircraft capable of moving at incredible speeds from pole to pole. The accuracy of these statements is debated among historians, but for many conspiracy theorists, they served as the main evidence that American intelligence had encountered some secret technological development smuggled out of Germany by the submarine fleet, a technology that could have changed the course of history. This gave rise to the legend that in Antarctica, the United States stumbled upon the very secret Nazi developments hidden beneath the icy crust. Some believe that these technologies were indeed transported there, and that the ghost submarines disappearing into the ocean are merely part of a large-scale operation to conceal and preserve secrets. Gradually, this legend evolved into a broader story about a hidden civilization created right in the heart of the icy continent, about secret bases and technologies unknown to ordinary people. All these mysteries and theories are just one side of the coin. But what is happening today? Are all these stories merely products of imagination and myths? Not at all. Search expeditions for the missing Third Reich submarines continue, and they are conducted not by lunatics in tinfoil hats, but by serious researchers and scientists. One of the most well-known groups is the Argentine organization called Eslabon Perdido, which translates as the missing link. For many years, this team, led by scientist and researcher Abel Bastia, has dedicated itself to studying this subject. They meticulously examine archival documents, gather testimonies from the last remaining witnesses, and organize expeditions to the Argentine coast. Their conviction is that the submarines like Humanus 530 and Humanus 977 were merely the tip of a huge iceberg, a clever smokescreen to distract attention from other, more important vessels. Their efforts have led to sensational discoveries. A few years ago, near the port of Kaken, approximately 300 kilometers south of Mar del Plata, a team of explorers using magnetometers and side-scan sonar discovered a large object on the ocean floor. The discovery of this mysterious submarine sparked considerable debate and speculation among researchers and enthusiasts of secret histories. Many pointed out that the construction of this vessel clearly indicated that it had been destroyed from within, which is characteristic of a situation where the crew was forced to destroy the ship internally, possibly to preserve a secret or avoid capture. Such evidence supports theories that the submarine may have been involved in an internal explosion, suggesting that it could have been under the control of those trying to escape or protect something important. Most importantly, the findings gathered during the investigation included testimonies from local residents, whose stories add historical depth to what is happening on the seabed. One elderly farmer, who had lived through the war years, swore that his father repeatedly told him how in 1945, on a dark night, he saw people in dark uniforms and trucks without headlights on a deserted coast, arriving and departing along unknown routes. Although these testimonies are subject to debate, they serve as important confirmation that discussions and hypotheses surrounding the Kaken find continue to unfold. But the very fact of this discovery already proves something significant, that sunken secrets related to a hidden history truly lie along the shores of Argentina. The work of enthusiasts like Abel Basti demonstrates that exploring the deep ocean is not just a hobby, but a real path to uncovering long-forgotten pages of history. His efforts indicate that the story of the Führer's convoy is not mere fiction, but a reflection of real events that still await their moment to be revealed. These events are hidden somewhere in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, and perhaps answers to many questions are concealed there, on the seabed. Now, if we return to the beginning and recall that unnamed anomalous silhouette discovered on the seabed off the coast of Patagonia, it becomes clear that all of this is just part of a larger mystery. Remember the broadcast that suddenly cut out and the century-old vow of silence that, it seems, was given by those involved in those events. All of this is only preliminary information. Everything we have just discussed is merely the beginning, a prelude to much deeper and more important secrets. Behind these stories lie legends of lost submarines, secret convoys, and mysterious bases in Antarctica. All of this are steps leading to an understanding of what was truly found. According to unofficial information leaked by one of the participants in a long-classified expedition, the recently discovered submarine bore no resemblance to any known classes of submarines. Part 10 of 11. It was not a combat submarine, lacking torpedo tubes and significantly larger than standard models. Its hull contours were unusual, smoother and more streamlined, indicating that it was designed for special purposes. Clearly, this submarine was intended for long transoceanic voyages, with a focus on maximum comfort, high speed, and exceptional stealth. It could be called a true underwater limousine, a personal transport created for specific goals. This was a unique engineering solution, rare and highly valuable. When robotic manipulators opened the sealed cargo compartments, they found nothing of gold, weapons, or even secret blueprints. The contents were far more personal and in some ways shocking. Inside the compartments were capsules with humidity control systems, resembling museum exhibits. One of them contained several dozen paintings, sealed in airtight frames. Experts who managed to glimpse these canvases via cameras before communication was cut off were stunned and frozen in amazement. They immediately recognized, in the center of the room stood a special pedestal on which two hermetically sealed containers made of durable stainless steel were carefully placed. Each was meticulously sealed, like guarded treasure chests intended to store especially valuable and mysterious items. The first container, as preliminary analysis revealed, held a complete medical archive of Adolf Hitler. Inside were all the records of his personal doctor, Theodor Morell, from detailed X-rays and various test results to a full list of medications and injections he had taken throughout his life. This archive was not just a collection of documents, but a comprehensive history of his physical condition, illnesses, dependencies, and possibly even his psychological health. This collection could be the key to demystifying the Führer's figure, revealing his true face and freeing him from the image of a mystical and unreachable person. The second container, lined with soft velvet, stored personal belongings belonging to Eva Braun, his companion and, according to some theories, his last love. Inside was a small jewelry box with jewelry, gifts, and mementos, as well as a personal diary containing her thoughts, feelings, and secrets. At the moment when all this valuable information was on display, the transmission suddenly cut out. At that moment, the viewers and operation participants realized they were facing something far more significant than just evidence of Hitler's escape. It was not merely a document or object indicating his flight. Perhaps the leader himself never used this rescue capsule, about which rumors had circulated. But what was found was far more important. It was irrefutable, tangible evidence that the highest level of escape and concealment preparations had not been accidental. It was not just a random artifact, but a kind of personal Noah's Ark for one person, filled not with technology or security forces, but with his inner world, obsessive thoughts, the past, and plans for the future. That is why the contents of this storage were immediately classified and decided to keep it sealed for 100 years. Time was needed for people to cool down and stop perceiving these findings as symbols capable of reigniting the flames of hatred and myths. Primarily, it was not about gold or secret weapon developments that could bring material profit. No, the reason was deeper. It was about the symbol hidden inside. Imagine what would happen if these items were displayed in a museum. Eva Braun's diary, paintings created by the Führer, his medical records where he appears not as a mystical figure, but as a sick and aging man. All of this would quickly turn into a pilgrimage site for neo-Nazis from around the world. Such exhibits could become a magnet for those seeking justification and new ideas for their goals. It would trigger a new wave of conspiracy theories about his survival, about the fact that he supposedly survived and is hiding somewhere in secluded corners. Such a scenario would become a powerful propaganda tool, capable of inspiring new followers, especially in the era of information warfare, when any image and symbol can carry immense significance. The Argentine government, the country on whose soil, according to rumors, the fugitive Nazis are hiding, realized that they faced a real-time bomb, Pandora's box, capable of exploding at any moment. And the only right way to deal with it was to seal all these artifacts forever, to keep them closed for centuries. In the hope that in 100 years humanity will become mature and wise enough to see these findings simply as historical relics, not as sacred symbols capable of awakening evil again. So what is stored now in the secret vault somewhere in Buenos Aires? Not gold,